let's take alcohol for example, because we've been talking about that a fair amount here. If we look at something like that, I do think that it's actually a serious issue what we have as the drinking age. So, first off, many other people have brought this up before, but the fact that we will draft people and send them off to war at 18 while simultaneously saying to them, oh, for 3 years, you can't have a drink, this is ludicrous. Okay? The other thing that I don't think is highlighted enough is that what I was describing earlier, where somebody knowledgeable, a parent, walks a child or somebody who's not yet knowledgeable about something through how to use that thing. I think there's a serious problem when we sit back and we say, you get to start drinking at 21. Well, what usually is occurring at 21? Usually people are...
You're in college.
Out of the house to some degree. So whether that's they're off renting, they've got a job, they're going to community college, they're in their 4-year degree, okay? And these people are now being introduced to alcohol for the first time, if they've not already been, by the way, which is often the case.
Often, maybe at 18 when you go off to college, or
yes,
depending on where you are, maybe even at high school.
But in either case, what we have is children being introduced to alcohol with nobody to guide them. Whether that's because they're now out of their parents' house, or freshly, might I add, or they're doing so illegally and now not bringing parents into it because they're underage drinking. In either case, we've removed a guiding role model from the equation. If instead, and I'm not necessarily advocating for this to be the case, if instead the drinking age was 17 or 18, and what you had was kids being exposed to this, yes, slightly younger, but under the at least relative supervision of a parental figure, I feel like this would result in a much healthier relationship with some of these substances. I think it would result in having a discussion about these substances. Speaking of which, I think the discussion would go something like, yes, this is very alluring, and yes, I recognize that there are, a lot of compelling things about this, but let's also talk about the negatives. For instance, the issues that I've seen with my extended family. One would talk to their kids about the severity that one should treat this with. Whether it comes to crimes or violent activities where almost 48% of homicide offenders drank right before a murder occurred, right? That's a large percentage. Or if we're simply talking about a lack of control of oneself, especially in an adolescent age, where you've got large numbers of kids who don't totally know how to control themselves, and now you put them even less in control because you've introduced alcohol into the equation, you could just be in the wrong place with something. We've got issues with drunk driving. We've got issues with potential sexual assault allegations or potential sexual assault. We have issues with kids not understanding what their alcohol tolerance level is. And this applies to not just alcohol, but other drugs as well. It applies to guns. These are things that people need to be walked through. And I think that each one of these is approached in a bit of a different way. Personally, I think one of the better approaches that we have is with that of guns. I think that many people who are introduced to guns at a young age do so with a parent who is very involved. They do so in a safe manner. And I think that there's kind of a community that comes around that advocates for safety, and it's something that we advocate for on a generalized level. And that's not something that I see with alcohol, drugs, smoking, things like this.